Hey guys, Dr. Bodle here. Hope you're doing well and welcome back to the channel. Now, a question that often comes up is, can keto help my Hashimoto's? And the answer is yes, but it depends on how we're approaching keto and it depends on the individual. Now, in general, what draws people to a ketogenic diet? Of course, there can be a lot of things, but oftentimes it's the promise of more efficient weight loss and also the ability to enjoy certain foods that are many times restricted with other ways of eating. But once we actually start following a keto way of eating, I think one of the bigger things that draws people to keto and motivates them to stick with it is the ability to measure ketones. With most diets, there can be a lot of uncertainty and we don't always know if we're doing things correctly and if what we're doing is working for us. So, if our big goal is to lose some weight and we find that our weight isn't changing very much over a period of time, then that can be pretty stressful and a lot of doubts can start to enter our head. But with keto and the ability to measure and track our ketone levels, we're able to get some immediate feedback, and I think that can be really comforting and provide more certainty for us. The problem is, although getting more data can often be helpful, it's really easy, like with other areas of our health, to get too focused in on the numbers. For people following keto, this typically means, as we said, tracking our ketone levels, whether that's through urine strips, blood samples, or breath analysis, and also looking at how many carbohydrates we're eating, usually by using some sort of food tracker. But as our eyes are drawn to these key metrics, the thought process being the less carbs I eat, the higher my ketone values, and therefore the more weight I'm going to lose, we end up starting to ignore the functional aspects of our health and how our symptoms are changing and improving. And instead of thinking things like, what helped my energy to be better this week? What helped my sleep to improve? What allowed me to lose a little bit more weight? We start trying to keto harder because we think the better that we can optimize those numbers, the better our outcomes are going to be. But as we start to become more comfortable with the ketogenic approach, that's where I think more problems tend to come into play. It's not uncommon to see people switch to a ketogenic way of eating and see a lot of improvements. But over time, those improvements slow down or stop, even though we're trying to be more aggressive with our keto approach. However, in our efforts to keep things keto and keep our carb intake low, I actually find that a lot of people are straying from those foundational principles of keto due to what I call the social mediaization of the keto diet. So again, if we start to accept that anything that limits carbs and promotes ketone levels is fine, then this opens us up to a whole host of things that might not be actually supportive to our health. Burgers loaded with tons of cheese, but no bun, lots of extra heavy whipping cream, putting fats and oils in our coffee. All of these things can be fine if they're working for you, but I think to some degree they miss the point. Why can keto be helpful? And specifically, why can it be helpful for Hashimoto's? Well, there are a number of reasons, and it's cool because it's actually baked directly into the diet and you don't really have to think about it too much. It encourages the eating of nutrient-dense foods like healthy fats and proteins. It manages our overall carbohydrate intake and reduces many of the processed carbs and sugars that can be problems for so many people. A lot of these foods are very satiating for us. And if we come from a history of doing a lot of different diets, that can be a very welcome change. Plus, keto encourages us to eat more of these satiating foods. And as you might know, I think a lot of people with Hashimoto's are under eating because they're concerned about gaining weight. When you put all of these things together, it can promote a better environment for healing autoimmunity. But because keto focuses so heavily on carbohydrate management, I think that can be the biggest key to helping out with Hashimoto's. A huge challenge for people with Hashimoto's is that it can lead to poor glucose control. And we know that fluctuations in glucose and insulin levels can drive inflammation and be a contributing cause or perpetuate autoimmunity. It's for these reasons that stabilizing our glucose and fuel levels is such a critical part of so many people's care plans. And if we can find a way to help our body better utilize the breakdown of fatty acids and potentially ketone bodies to help produce energy and support our cellular metabolism, then that can be a great way to ease the burden on our system rather than always viewing things through a carbohydrate based lens or approach. So, adding more fats and protein to our diet can be a very good thing because of how stabilizing it can be. But at the same time, for people with Hashimoto's, because their metabolism is different, this idea that we can add unlimited fats to whatever we're eating just because it makes our ketone values look good also isn't the answer. Finally, although there can be a lot of good food options within keto, and as we said before, many of these are restricted on other diets, and that can feel very liberating to people, keto also often heavily promotes dairy products due to their high fat content. And who doesn't want to follow a diet that says, yeah, unlimited amounts of cheese, that's totally fine for you to have. But we also know that dairy can be problematic for a significant amount of people with Hashimoto's. And although it might fit into your macros, eating it could be inflammatory or triggering to your immune system and potentially prevent you from achieving your goals. So, can keto be helpful for Hashimoto's? As we said at the very beginning of the video, the answer is yes. But the way that it can be helpful all starts with us recognizing the fact that keto for the general public is different than keto for Hashimoto's. So, sure, use keto as a structure or a starting point, but I think it's important that we worry less about the ketone levels and more about how we feel. Reducing processed and refined carbohydrates is helpful for just about anyone, but due to the added demand of Hashimoto's, reducing our carbohydrates further can be helpful. But what we want to look for isn't that increase in ketones. Instead, it's better to focus on the functional aspects. Things like, am I noticing changes in energy after I eat? Do I feel sleepy, tired, or drowsy 30 minutes after a meal? Am I having an afternoon slump around 3 p.m.? And do I notice any issues either falling or staying asleep? If any of these areas tend to be problem areas for you, then it could be an indicator that you are struggling with your glucose regulation. And therefore, managing our carbohydrate and glucose intake could help us to see improvements. At the same time, unless it's a special situation, less carbs doesn't necessarily mean no carbs. And because with Hashimoto's, it can be helpful to have a blend of different foods in your nutrition plan. If you're including some carbohydrates and aren't noticing any ill effects, then it can be fine for you to continue to include them. Additionally, we do want to include fat in our diet. And I think a lot of these ultra low fat approaches can present a lot of problems for people. But as we said, that doesn't mean that we should be adding it at every chance we get. Some people promote this idea that with a ketogenic diet, fat is free, and there aren't any negative metabolic consequences because it doesn't increase our insulin levels and doesn't negatively impact our ketone levels. In fact, oftentimes it can help to promote higher levels of ketones. And while I'm not saying that the hormonal impact of fats, carbohydrates, and proteins are all the same, physiology is often accompanied by a U-shaped curve, and pushing things to the extreme usually doesn't benefit us. So do I think you should include fats in your diet, and can it be helpful to Hashimoto's? Yes, but they should be eaten as part of the whole food that they're coming with, or to be used in reasonable amounts as part of our cooking. Maybe because you're busy and on the go, having some extra fat in your coffee or on your eggs can be helpful. But again, if this is something that we're doing with every meal and all the time, it's most likely going to create a situation where you're over-consuming fat, which likely won't promote an environment that supports our thyroid healing. And finally, to promote healing and support our Hashimoto's recovery, we want to make sure that we're including plenty of healthy protein. This is something that I think is typically part of most people's approaches to keto, although you will see some people say that having too much protein can promote gluconeogenesis and actually reduce the amount of ketones that you're making. I don't believe this to be true, but I also to some degree don't care too much. Again, the focus shouldn't be entirely on the ketone levels. We want to focus on you and your condition and do whatever we can to facilitate that healing. So is that keto? managing our carbohydrate intake, including healthy fats, and eating plenty of protein? If it is, great. If it isn't, that's okay too. But as we said, be okay with that. Be okay with adapting things to your needs and recognizing that Hashimoto's is different and there are going to be different requirements that need to be met. In the end, the way that we label things isn't important, it's the way that you feel. Plus, even though I know social media can apply a lot of pressure to us and we want to have the success that we're seeing other people having, my guess is that what you're seeing on social media isn't always what's going on behind the scenes. And that influencer who's eating a gallon of butter every day, they're probably doing it because it's clickable, not because it's actually going to help you with your Hashimoto's, and they're probably not having the success that they claim to be having. But I hope that you enjoyed today's video and it gave you a more well-rounded understanding of ketogenic diets and how they relate to Hashimoto's. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment down below. If you liked the video, but you realize you need more help with your Hashimoto's, then I'd recommend reaching out to me by sending an email to contact@seattlethyroidhelp.com and requesting more information about my online course. In my course, I help women with Hashimoto's who aren't getting any help from their doctor, want to make changes, but are overwhelmed by trying to do things themselves, go from feeling tired, exhausted, and discouraged to making nutritional, lifestyle, and supplemental choices with confidence. That way they can truly understand their Hashimoto's while feeling energized, strong, and being able to control their life again. The course includes 8 modules covering everything you need to know when it comes to Hashimoto's and provides you with a clear plan of action. That way you can start making real changes. The modules are pre-recorded and they allow you to fit it into your schedule and learn at your own pace. But there are also weekly live support sessions and a Facebook group. That way I can be there to help you directly every step of the way. Not to mention the fact that you have lifetime access to those weekly sessions even after you finish the course. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, make sure to reach out. That way we can hop on a call and figure out if the course is a good fit. If you want to keep learning on your own, there's also a lot of opportunity for that as well. You can check out any of the other videos right here on my YouTube channel. You can follow me on Instagram or Facebook for daily tips, strategies, and information, or you can grab either one of my free downloads, which are linked in the description box below. But that's it for this week. I love you guys, keep up all the great changes, and reach out if you have any questions. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so, and click on the bell so you can be notified every Thursday when new videos drop. But my name is Dr. Bodle. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you in the next one.